Redditors who have been clinically dead, what did you experience in death, if anything? Please subscribe, like and leave a comment. Much love to you all. I was dead for 6 minutes. I was laying on the gurney and I was getting colder. Somewhere my body started warming up and everything became really calm and peaceful. I was not longer in pain. All the noise from her just went away. It was really enjoyable. I was thinking about my daughter and I was remembering all the things we had done. Slowly it was just black and nothing. There was no knowledge of anything. I explain it as it was like before I was born. Then the worst thing in the world is being revived. I starting hearing loud noises. I felt this massive pain. Then there was the nastiest stench ever. The smell was like every dead animal had crawled in my nose. The smell was so bad I started vomiting. I remember the DRs turning me on my side and watching my vomit spray on a nurse. Dying was the most pleasant thing I have ever experienced, and being revived the worse. I was 19 when I had my first hip replacement surgery, born with a bad hip. The doctor put me under, and then all of a sudden it was like I was opening my eyes but felt nothing. No pain, no sadness, nothing. Apparently I flatlined for 90 seconds due to complications. As I had my eyes open I began to rise out of my body and stand next to it. How freaky is it to see yourself from outside your body? The thing is I never let my left hand let go of my body's left hand. It felt attached. The second I saw the nurse use the heart starting thing, I was jolted upright, back in my body. This really was not the ideal post to stumble across during my nightly existential crisis. Hey, I have nightly existential dread too. An intense panic about what happens next and what I'm going to miss out on. But this whole thread has really put me at ease, and I'm not so worried anymore. I hope your dread leaves you alone soon. I saved this thread specifically to read at 3 AM because I needed something to fuel my nightly existential crisis. Not really sure what happened and it still freaks me out to this day. My daughter was 4 and developed pneumonia. Her breathing would stop in her sleep, so we took her into the emergency room. She was there for a total of 5 days. For the first 3 days her health kept deteriorating. And on the 3rd day my girlfriend got a call that her mother had collapsed and was taken to the hospital. She was without oxygen for 20 minutes and was declared brain dead. That night my daughter woke up and asked about grandma. No one had said anything to her or in the room with her. We asked her what did she mean. She told us that grandma came to her in a dream and said it's not your time yet. I'll go for you. Immediately the next day she was almost 100% better. That is fucking crazy. Wow. Instant chills. I think about death a lot. Like, an insane, worrying amount. I cry about it a lot too. I'm terrified to die. I'm terrified of what comes after. And I'm terrified of losing people I love. This thread has actually made me feel a bit better about it. So thank you Opus. I lost my mom last year and I remember her telling me when I was little, because I would say it first, that she was scared to die. I'm glad to know that it isn't as bad as we both thought. Hope you will accept some hugs from an internet stranger. I have the same fear. I think about it every day and I have panic attacks. This thread does help a little. Anaphylaxis wasn't breathing. I considered all the hallucinations I experienced likely due to hypoxic episode until I told my mom what I saw. A middle-aged man who wasn't in scrubs standing still at the end of my bed while all staff were running around and doing their business. I was having a nonverbal conversation with him and he was telling me to calm down, focus on breathing. He wore a tropical style button-down shirt, one of those old school newsboys hats, and had a very pleasant demeanor. Mom showed me a photo of my grandpa that I never had seen before, and it was the guy at the foot of my bed, and he died before I was even born. Edit. Didn't know this would comfort so many people. Just remember not to worry too much about death, and remember to enjoy your life while you have it. That's super eerie. Comforting though. Friend of mine described it as deeply relaxing, and that she could feel herself drifting away, but was brought back just as she was ready to leave. After that, she embraced life and death. She said she doesn't fear death anymore, since it was so relaxing to experience. Similar experience here. As you're dying, you start feeling tired in a way you never have before, or will again, until you die. The sheer act of staying alive is exhausting. But then it's all blank until I woke up from a coma a couple weeks later. You don't even remember the actual moment of death, and it takes weeks for your mind to remember everything leading up to it. I was in a ton of pain before and after because a couple of my organs were perforated, but dying itself wasn't painful. I agree that I'm also not afraid of death. Not even just because of the pain factor, but because it feels less unknown to me, and there isn't time for regret when it happens. Awesome. Everyone seems to be in agreement that death was awesome and euphoric. That is comforting to hear. Thanks everyone. I agree with this. Looking forward to the rest of my hopefully long life, knowing death will be a cool non-scary experience when the time comes. Overdosed. Flatlined. Didn't see a damn thing. When they hit me with Narcan, I woke up really mad, ripping force out of my arms, cursing out the poor, amazing staff who saved my life. Good times. 6 years ago now with all that shit behind me luckily. A black void. Then waking up in her surrounded by people running around like crazy. I was cold AF, but in reality, just room temp. Had to add and say that it was relatively peaceful, like being wrapped in a big warm blanket. My wife and I discussed this at length 4 years ago. She died twice in 3 months, needing full resuscitation both times. Both were lengthy rescues. One resuscitation was off and on for nearly 40 minutes. I asked her later, when she had recovered, if she remembered anything at all during the time she was clinically dead. She remembered nothing. Blackness. No light. No relatives and former pets waiting for her. Just black. Thankfully, also no pain. She finally passed 18 months ago, and I hope she felt no pain or worry the final time. I know 3 people that have been clinically dead and have come back. What they described is something much different than what people are talking about here. They all said, if you paraphrase, that it feels as if you're passing out. Someone compared it to odding on whippets, nitrous oxide, a feeling of your conscience slowly getting focused into one point in the exact middle of your head, while your limbs lose feeling in a tingling, pleasant way, and then you lose consciousness. One girl said that when she came back into conscience she was hallucinating because she had no idea what was going on, and that she started dreaming of something safe. I pointy her mother hugging her in a warm bed. I coded after surgery. I remember being able to see and hear everything and understand what was happening, but I couldn't physically feel anything. It was deeply unsettling. My heart also stopped after surgery 3 years ago. I only remember them getting me back and rifting between darkness and seeing the nurses panic. Like you mentioned, I felt nothing and was just an impartial observer. The aftermath was the worst. Realizing how close I was to oblivion and recalling the dissociation was horrifying. People often say, oh, I'm not worried, she's a fighter, when someone gets very ill. But me? I feel like I was just ready to watch myself fade into the dark despite being content and having things to live for. Unsettling is exactly the right word. I died twice after I got MRSA into my heart area after a major surgery. I don't remember much of anything when I was out. Cliché as it was, I saw a light, but damn, that year sucked. Understatement of the year, Mayo. Yeah, that year where I died sucked pretty bad. Usually when I die twice it's only that month that sucks pretty bad. The rest of the year is okay. Reading this thread while stoned was a terrible mistake. Doing the same right now. Phil Swidman. No man, you know what I'm reading about all these people and feeling nothing but peace and never wanting to leave that. Gives me hope everything will feel okay for me at the end. Not mine, but the head of my program was in a horrible car accident. She was dead for a few minutes on the scene while paramedics worked on her. She said it was the most amazing feeling she's ever experienced. It was black nothing, but that was perfectly fine, and she felt a comfort she can't even explain. She remembers being angry at the man working on her when she finally came back to her body because she wanted to stay there. She told us she can't wait to experience it again when it's really her turn. Edit. I'm really pleased this resonated so strongly with so many of you. I wanted to add some detail about her. She's not religious in the slightest, and she actively quashes our ghost stories and shit. Mortuary students, because she only believes in tangible things, so she fully turned me into a believer. Felt it's important I make a distinction. She was very adamant about when telling us this story she's not advocating suicide. She stressed that she isn't telling us she's trying to reach this place again, but that when it was her time she was going to be comfortable embracing it. This was honestly very comforting in a weird and unexpected way. A friend of mine described death. She was technically dead twice, as being surrounded by darkness and floating with some sort of warm gel-like substance covering her. She never wanted to leave that state. Oh my GPD. That literally described the tanks that the machines used in the Matrix. Oh fuck. Heavy breathing. And now I know Kung Fu. It's basically hypoxia. When you huff glue or nitrogen, or whatever, you deprive your brain of oxygen. The sensation you would feel after your heart stop is your brain running out of oxygen, losing efficiency, and eventually shutting down. It turns out, most people feel happier with less of their brain working. When I came into this thread I didn't expect it to make me want to huff glue, yet here we are. Looked like I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. How interesting. I had an experience like that coming out of anesthesia after surgery. I was in a warm dark place. Perfectly comfy, warm, nothing hurt, no worries, just this is nice, I think I'll stay here. And then I woke up, and I was fucking cold, and angry. First thing I said, when I could finally talk cause my teeth were chattering so hard, was God damn it's fucking cold in here. Then I got a shot of something in my fourth and a blanket, and was much warmer and much less busy. I don't know what I experienced while I was dead, but when I woke back up, so to speak, I remember wanting to experience it permanently. See, I don't think I can really post my experience here, because I wasn't deemed clinically dead. But I did get hit by a car once, when I was about 13, and I will never forget the experience that came afterwards. I was biking when a lady hit me with her car. I had a moment prior to being hit, where I knew it was going to happen, but it was far too late for me to actually do anything about it. I braced for impact, got hit, and went straight into this state of complete utter silence. I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, no smells, no thoughts, no feelings. I just simply existed in this peaceful black bubble, and it was the most at peace I've ever been in my life. It felt like I had been there for hours honestly, but really it had only been a few seconds before I woke up and everything came back. The loud noises, the pain from being hit, seeing all the cars etc. It's crazy though, it was one of the most amazing feelings I've ever experienced. I hope this helps answer your question. For both you and /you/pass this law. I drowned and was resuscitated when I was a teenager. I remember struggling mightily and then, when I was sure there wasn't any hope, a distinct okay then. I can let go. And from that moment on, there was peace. Total peace. Nothing hurt. I didn't even feel the dying part. I would imagine, for someone who decides upon suicide, the peace started the second they made that choice. It's said that suicide victims often looked happiest/calmest in their final days. Now that being said, there are other, better ways of obtaining peace that aren't destructive, and I urge anyone reading this who is considering suicide to talk to someone. It is entirely possible to be happy again while alive. You just can't do it without outside help. You seem like a fantastic and smart person. I feel that you said exactly what needs to be said and covered the bases. Thank you. I don't know if this counts, as I don't think I flatlined, but I had a huge postpartum hemorrhage after my second and last child was born. I lost 2.3 ltrs of blood, which I think is about half of all my blood, and considered the highest classification of blood loss before death occurs. I was given general anesthetic before I passed out on my own, but leading up to that was such a surreal experience. As someone has previously mentioned, there is this sense of acceptance, of laying back and going with it. When I first started bleeding I was scared and panicking. By the time I was being wheeled into theater, I was smiling at the midwife and telling her it was going to be okay. I was delirious and euphoric, and not scared at all. My vision started to go. At first it was colored spots, then everything had a gray hue as tunnel vision set in. Sound became muffled, like putting my hands over my ears. The whole time, the general feeling of indifference and no urge to fight it was there. It was so calm I don't think I've ever computed just how lucky I'm to be here. So a near-death experience by blood loss, can confirm, not bad. The recovery though, I felt like shit for fucking weeks and had PTSD. I was so physically weak that I could barely take care of the baby and had to inject myself with anti-clotting meds for 6 weeks every day. I'm probably too late to this thread, but I have an interesting story, so I'll share it. I was not the one who experienced this, but it was one of my teachers I had in high school a few years ago. She was having open heart surgery in Minneapolis, Minnesota and coded 3 times during the surgery. When she came out of surgery and began to regain consciousness, she kept speaking of all these souls that she saw. I remember her saying she was scared for them and wasn't sure what would happen to them. I can't remember exactly what she said about the souls, but I do remember her saying that they had all just died in an accident. Her surgery was on August 1st, 2007. This was also the day that the I-35W bridge collapsed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the same city she was in. It collapsed while she was being operated on. Clinically dead on 2 separate occasions. I didn't experience any visions or light and I didn't feel anything at all. It was like a switch was flipped and my existence was just shut off. Coming back was another story. Slowly I was able to hear the voices of those around me fading in, and they slowly got louder until I was able to open my eyes. That's it. Nothing spectacular. 1 second you're here, 1 second you're not. Somewhat comforting. I like the difference in opinions here. The same story is comforting and disturbing / unsettling to others. Personally, I find it comforting too, that it's just a nice easy switch to nothing. Like falling asleep isn't scary, it's comfortable and welcome. Not me, but right before my great-grandma passed she kept trying to explain these vivid colors and smells. She kept saying how beautiful things were, and she was saying it's unlike anything she ever saw. She was an extremely religious woman. A little while after the colors and smells she told us, he said we have to say it's okay for her to go. I mean, my whole family was standing around saying goodbye. I vividly remember this, even though I was only 9. Once we all said it was okay, she passed on. Also the night before, she was talking to herself. We asked her what's going on, and she pointed at the chair across the room and said please don't be rude. Him having a conversation with her, and we were confused and asked about what, and she said the woman was explaining what we were going to do with our futures. So strange, and I'll never know if it was real or what was happening. But it's kinda cool to think it's real. When my grandfather was dying at home from cancer, he would often see his sister and brother-in-law. He would tell us when they would come to see him. The hospice nurses said it's very common. It brings me great comfort to know they probably welcomed him when he finally passed.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.